Old Wilford, who should have died from the cold 7 years ago, suddenly came back to life with another train. Not only that, the lovely and obedient daughter Melanie was also saved and trained by him. She now became an excellent engineer just like her mother. Now that the second train Big Alice has been connected to the tail of Snowpiercer, now the tail acts as a border between the new two factions. Within the time allowed, Wilford asked Layton to provide him with all the items he needed, from cucumbers, tomatoes to wine and books. While everyone was panicking from the front engine to the back of the train, Melanie outside was running out of time as the temperature was minus 118 degrees. Melanie was completely caught in the trap set by Wilford. He tricked her into slowing down, and now Snowpiercer cannot start on its own and provide warmth for the passengers. Even though Ben tried to stop Melanie, she still decided to break the connection between the two to start the engines. Melanie's body temperature was gradually dropping to an alarming level. She was trying her best to avoid the cold. After successfully restarting the locomotive system, Melanie made a bold decision. She did not return to the train through the snow but instead went back to installing a bomb on Big Alice. After Alex had fully and thoroughly checked the items, they agreed to let the train continue to move. When Melanie discovered that the train was running, she also tried to complete the bomb installation process. She breathed a sigh of relief as she stretched out on the cold ice. It had been a long time since she had felt the fresh air of the earth, the solidity of Mother Earth. She saw the white snowflakes falling gently down on her. Ben thought she had lost consciousness. Ben urged her to quickly get on the train through the snow, but Melanie refused. She also took a snow sample in a test tube, but the impact from earlier caused frostbite to her. Outside, her old friends stood there waiting for her while Melanie showered and changed clothes. The chief of the service department here is Kevin. As soon as they met, he used an electric baton to thank her for leaving them behind 7 years ago. Kevin then took her to Wilford's room. Wilford's dog Jupiter still remembers the smell of Melanie, so he rushed to wag his tail in a friendly way. Wilford, sitting in the corner, was very excited and wanted to tell her the story of how he survived this whole time. Turns out, Wilford had been waiting this whole time with his crew. It was only a matter of time before they got to Snowpiercer. While Melanie travels around the world with Snowpiercer, Wilford has repaired Big Alice into a palace. He was always waiting for the opportunity to grab the bait that had been taken by Melanie. To do that, Big Alice had to risk going on the test route at Rocky Mountain. Wilford wanted her to hand the train over to him, or else he would drop anchor and let all the passengers completely freeze on the upper train, as they won't be able to last more than 20 minutes. However, now Melanie no longer has that authority. The leader of the train now belongs to Layton. Then Wilford opens the driving compartment and finds out that the engineer is Alex. Melanie suddenly froze. She was seeing her lovely little daughter after 7 long years. That daughter was standing right here in the flesh. But Alex was not happy at all. She completely ignored the presence of her mother. It turned out that the food exchange was a way for Wilford to evaluate the quality of the agricultural prescription. Alex discovered that the security department had completely disappeared, but the hospitality department was still wearing Wilford uniforms. Melanie repeatedly warned her daughter not to be manipulated by Wilford, but Alex ignored her mom and told Kevin to throw her into prison. Layton tried implementing a democratic regime and informed all the people about Wilford wanting to take over the train. Audrey gave a warning about the dictator that Wilford is. He not only wants the train, but everyone's souls on the train as well. Layton came up with a plan to strike first, but they couldn't know what kind of weapons Wilford possessed. That night, Alex and Melanie had the opportunity to talk about the past. Melanie says that she tried to send people to look for Alex and her parent, but she never heard back any news. Alex says they tried their best to persuade the old couple, but they refused to go. Her parents wanted to die together in their own house. Melanie tried to explain why Wilford is just using her, but Alex didn't believe her. She also asked about the snow experiment bottle in Melanie's pocket, but Melanie decided to make something up. Alex was extremely upset when her mother insisted that she hadn't seen fresh air in a long time. Right after Alex left, the security team came and asked Melanie to turn her back and put her hands behind her. They took her to the research room with 2 doctors called the Headwood. They examined Melanie burns and then brought in a breathing tube and synthetic tissue. It is effective in treating all types of frostbite. Immediately after in contact with the skin, it will soothe the wound immediately without leaving any scars. At the border, Wilford soldiers asked to exchange some fresh fruit for an ounce of premium marijuana. A delicious deal fell from the sky, causing Kevin to indulge in fun. Layton realized that this was a great ambush opportunity for the Snowpiercer army. Everyone was waiting in ambush for the door to open. Unable to avoid the temptation of the delicious and succulent mango, the border soldiers excitedly opened the door but were greeted with a sharp spear from Old Pike. Strong Boy took responsibility for holding the door tight for the team while the army advanced. The first group captured Kevin as hostage, then the second group set up shields to protect the army from a barrage of arrows from the guards. The third army brought crossbows to knock down the two guards to begin the invasion of Big Alice. Wilford received the bad news and immediately sent the Icy Bob to handle the situation. The army, which was gaining the upper hand, suddenly turned completely around when the giant Bob appeared. He punched the old man and flew dozens of far away. Then the train released freezing temperatures from the outside into the inside of the ship. The soldiers could not stand the cold and quickly escaped back to the train through the snow. Icy Bob didn't forget to say goodbye with a familiar middle finger. That monster single-handedly destroyed an entire army in -70°C without any injuries. Kevin warned that this will make Wilford angry, that he would kill everyone. Wilford asked Alex to stop the train through the snow and then drop anchor. He asked Melanie to convince Layton to hand over Snowpiercer to him. Otherwise, the connection will be disconnected and then reverse back, leaving the people on the train to freeze. Wilford even threatens Melanie that she will have to personally take her friends' bodies to be used as fertilizer. Melanie is trying to convince Alex not to disconnect, but now she only obeys Wilford's orders. But little did they know, the bomb that Melanie has placed is waiting to detonate. Now there is no longer a disconnection system. Big Alice and Snowpiercer will be stuck together. Stopping now will mean that everyone will die. Wilford got played right into Melanie's hand. Now this time they will have compromise with each other. After Alex gave the test tube to the Headwood to check, she discovered that there was ammonium sulfate from the snow sample. Melanie told Alex it was snowing outside, but she didn't believe it, just like Ben thought it was impossible for snow to fall at such low temperatures. Layton, realizing Beth's dedication, immediately prompted her to the position of train detective under Roche's presence. He asked her to investigate the incident of assaulting people at the tail of the train yesterday, while he and Roche will have to interrogate Kevin. At first he was very calm and continuously refused to answer, but Layton soon discovered his fatal flaw. He called someone to bring in a plate of chicken with spicy sauce that tastes just like home. Surely enough, just as he predicted, Kevin could not hide his craving and rushed to eat it like a caveman. Layton began to interrogate him about Big Alice's crew size. If he didn't answer, Layton would pull back the plate and stop feeding him. Kevin was forced to say that Icy Bob is immune to frostbite due to the synthetic gel skin. On this side, Alex and Wilford still appeared to be very calm. Wilford says that reunion can be tricky sometime. He agreed to give Melanie the opportunity to meet Layton again, in exchange for Kevin. This is where Wilford meets Layton for the first time. Layton starts laying out the rule, saying only the prisoners are allowed to cross. If any side makes any move, it will show a sign of aggression. But then Alex rushed forward. She wanted to give Melanie the test tube and ask what it was for. Melanie tries to convince her daughter to come with her to find out together. But Alex says it is 7 years too late. She crushed the tube and returned to Wilford. Melanie warned that the purpose of Wilford releasing her was to test Layton. The two quickly returned to the locomotive, and Melanie brought up the story of how the Headwood family created healing tissue and the theory behind the test tube. It is very likely that, when CW7 fell, the main cause was that the Earth freezes, but now, after a long time, it showed signs of deterioration and rapid melting. To welcome the hospitality department head back safely, Mr. Weiford takes a bath with Kevin to help him dispel his fatigue. Kevin excitedly told everything he knew about life on the other side of the train, but when Wilford asked what he knew about Snowpiercer, Kevin said they are classless now. Alex asked him if he had eaten anything, making Kevin's face turn pale. Kevin says that he only took a few bites. Wilford looks at Alex and tells her to give them some space. Alex closed the door while Wilford himself stripped down and went into the bathtub with Kevin. Wilford blamed Kevin for revealing Big Alice's biggest weakness just because he was hungry. He also agreed to open the border just to get some food, causing a riot that killed many of Wilford's soldiers. The final punishment he gave was that Kevin had to kill himself in the bathtub. On the other side of the train, Zara accidentally went to the medical room to find Josie somehow still alive. She had a cruel idea to inject medicine to kill Josie. However, after thinking about it again and again, Zara still couldn't win over her own conscience. She went to Audrey for some solution. Audrey says that she should protect Layton and that none of their hands are clean. On the upper engine, after Javi released a thermal balloon into the atmosphere, they both received a good signal that the Earth is warming up. The temperature is getting warmer and warmer, the Earth is reviving, and CW7 is gradually falling. However, to continue further research, it is necessary to connect with Wilford as only he has the scientific equipment that Melanie needs. Layton decided to apply the strategy that old Ivan had shown him when they played chess. For arrogant opponents, just put him in the center of the board. Layton's intention was to let him expose himself to the entire public. But Melanie understood how dangerous Wilford is. If they gave him the higher ground, he would act immediately. Melanie told Layton that if he wanted to win, he needed people on his side. The invitation letter was sent to Wilford with the content of inviting him to attend a scientific conference. Although it seemed like bait to get him to show up, Wilford felt this was an opportunity to meet Layton and everyone on the train. If anything wrong happens, Alex will be there to strike with her hidden dagger. By hiding the knife in her mouth, Alex passed the search by the police team, and Wilford passed through the third-class carriage under the applause of the people. LJ took the opportunity to greet and hug Wilford. During the conference, Alex only attentively watched the movements of Layton. With the support and corrections from the headwood, Melanie's hypothesis that the Earth is gradually warming up convinced Wilford. After announcing that the news that Earth is warming up, Wilford immediately seems upset. He argues that why should anyone believe what Melanie said, as she is the one that stole his train while Layton is just a rebel. His expression was not happy at all, but there were many people watching, so he had to agree to a joint research agreement. However, Wilford's condition is that she must be the one that directly monitors the canyon station, which means she will have to leave the train and live there for 1 month. Layton was surprised, but Melanie also set her condition to stop all aggressive actions between the two trains. Wilford agreed and reminded Alex to stop the assassination while her hands were filled with blood. After shaking hands with Wilford, Layton learned that Josie was still alive from Zara. He ran as fast as he could to his lover's bed and knelt down. The secret of Icy Bob frostbite resistance was also gradually revealed. After being continuously transplanted with heat-resistant tissue cells for many years, combined with practicing in the ice chamber at -100 degrees Celsius, the pain of Icy Bob was directly proportional to the joy of the old Wilford, the expression on his face showed. After a period of discussion, the two locomotives decided to combine and support each other to bring Melanie to the research station. It was located at the top of Rocky Mountain, which required them to venture through a dangerous curve. Big Alex can easily run the bridge through and feels completely fine, but the problem lies in Snowpiercer, which doesn't have enough juice to make it through. If they fail to go up the mountain, they would have to go around the world again. Wilford came up with the idea that when the train goes through the snow up the mountain, Big Alice will give them a boost to make it through the curve. Melanie wanted to go to the train with Ben to get the necessary equipment for the research trip, but Wilford didn't agree, as Big Alice is a Ben-free zone. Instead, Alex will be the one in charge of assisting Melanie in preparing and arranging the equipment. Luckily, Big Alice has car-carrying tools and gear. Realizing that Wilford doesn't have necessities like food and drink, Layton offered to exchange fresh food to get more equipment. When Wilford henchmen saw the fresh food, they almost couldn't hold back their hunger. Wilford also praised Layton for his outstanding leadership ability. The two sides have an agreement and leave the border. On Big Alice, Wilford reveals there are up to 27 cars full of supplies. Alex repeatedly warned of Melanie's fragile ability to survive, and that her mother would most likely die if not careful. Even with a cold-hearted attitude, Alex could no longer stay hostile hearing her mother's words of concern. Alex blamed her mother for leaving once, and now she is leaving again. Just like my father, just joking. Now that Alex has agreed to open up and share everything related to herself, Melanie wonders about where Alex slept. Does she ever laugh? Haha. Looking at Alex's smile, we can see Malay's most comfortable smile from the beginning of the movie until now. After doing an inspection, Bess discovered that the victim of the accident had her pinky finger cut off, resembling the Wilford symbol, which made Bess confirm that Wilford had allies on this train. So they start with the Breachman crew, Boki. She rushed into the room full of the muscle guys and asked directly who attacked Lights. Boki didn't show any sign of fear but instead turned around and mocked Layton Revolution. He even showed off his Wilford tattoo to Bess and Roche. Alex took her mother to the place where she slept for the past 7 years. Inside were pictures that Alex had decorated. Alex showed her mother the picture he had drawn. Looking at it, Melanie couldn't help to contain her emotions. The mother and daughter discussed their plan for the next month. Only until that Alex decided to call Melanie Mom. She smiled once again in full happiness. Melanie told Alex to touch the train in order to feel it. She reminds Alex to go check it out because maybe they might have a misaligned wheel. Alex touches her mother's hand as she laid it on her cheek. Ben warns Layton about the danger of Wilford. He is famous for being jealous, but what he is jealous of is the power to control others. Although both of them have different motivations, they both aim for a common goal, to get Melanie back after 1 month. Icy Bob can now withstand temperatures of -96 degrees Celsius for nearly an hour. But Wilford is still not satisfied and wants it to be colder and longer. Alex informed the engineering team that there was indeed a small adjustment needed to be made without anyone knowing. She tried to apply the method that Melanie showed her but did not feel any difference. The turn was about to come and they had 25 minutes to go uphill. However, Snowpiercer did not have enough power to get him through the mountain, so the solution the engineering team came up with was to cut off all the power in first class and second, only leaving electricity in the night car as a meeting place. Now Ruth must quickly direct everyone to a safe place quickly, while Layton rushes to the Josie side because she was alone. Snowpiercer was going uphill and the speed was decreasing very quickly. The people had not yet been gathered, so it was impossible to cut off the power. In a few minutes it would be too late to climb the mountain. Wilford suggested accelerating before the turn, but Ben did not agree. Doing so would likely derail the upper car. However, Wilford told them to be confident in Alex's abilities. The condition is that she must maintain a speed fast enough to push the train up the mountain and not derail the train. If she fails, they would all be dead. Mellie encouraged her daughter to stay calm and slowly release the brake, while Ruth and the hospitality team tried to encourage everyone on the train to keep order on the difficult mountain road. Although Snowpiercer is gradually regaining speed, but it's still not enough. Now they Alex to give them the boost. Wilford told Alex that she has two choices: if you derail them now, you will be rid of Melanie. But her reason won in the end over the emotions. Alex's tears fell, but the train successfully went up. Then Wilford asked her to look at him and to never shed tears again. And now what is about to await Alex is a journey where she may never see her beloved mother again. Alex decided to meet her mother one last time. Wilford called Jupiter to stop her, but the dog instead obeyed Alex's command. Melanie gave Ben a goodbye kiss and walked straight to the border area. Before leaving, she just wanted to thank Ruth and Layton, hoping that they would take care of her little girl. Layton promised to stay here and wait for the day when the train's chief engineer brought back good news. Before Melanie leaves, Alex decides to see her mother one last time. The two share their last moment together. The little girl couldn't help but hug her mother, and Alex told all her thoughts that at that moment she wanted to hit the brakes so that they could be together longer. When Melanie went through the train door car, the two just looked at each other through the window, not waiting to leave. Melanie waited for the flare signal, then jumped down without hesitation. Next, she would have to go through 30 days full of hardships and difficulties. The next day, Wilford sent a letter to Layton offering to treat the frostbite patient on the Snowpiercer. However, this made Layton a little bit worried as he didn't know what Wilford's purpose was. He sent back a letter asking what he really wanted. Alex didn't need to guess to know that it is about his hot mistress, Ms. Audrey, in the night car. However, what Wilford also wanted is to visit the wonderful night car that he has created. Layton informed Audrey and asked her to help them, that for Audrey, Wilford is the biggest obsession of her life. She told Layton the story of since the age of 18, she has been a high-class escort only for the most powerful man in Chicago, and of course she was also Wilford's favorite, but in return she has lost everything. Layton understands, but what he wants now is for Audrey to use that trust and love to steer him. Audrey agrees but says that this time she will do it for herself. However, the condition in Layton's letter is that Wilford must be accompanied by someone. So he decided to randomly pick some employees to join him. Wilford guard. Gibbs says that it is what she is here for, but Alex teased Wilford by saying he has taken everyone around the world just to find his lover Audrey. Wilford got angry and pointed straight at Alex's face, strictly forbidding the girl from saying that name. Wilford then announces 3 lucky employees to go with him to the night car for some fun. The first lucky person was the oiler Bob, the chef Damien, and the last was the seamstress Amelia. All 3 of these people have their files investigated by Roche and Layton to exploit the necessary information, but they still have to focus on the main purpose of this evening, which is to celebrate the mission of first contacting Melanie. Layton will turn this night into Wilford's best night on the train, and at that time they will take advantage of him to convince his people how great Snowpiercer is. After treating all 13 patients, Layton wanted to ask the Headwoods to come and help treat Josie. Layton wanted to go alone, making Ruth feel not being appreciated, so she and Zara had a small talk. Zara makes an offer to become a hospitality staff to help Ruth. Because the burns were too severe on Josie's side, the Headwoods suggested bringing her back to their laboratory for treatment. Even though Josie knew this could be one of Wilford's plots, she wouldn't be able to stay here. Then Boki got jumped by the tails as they wanted revenge for Lights. Boki announced that there were more than 10 breachmen right under the tailies' noses. Lights and the boy decided to beat him up to teach the big guy a lesson, but Boki breachman crew were nearby to support him and 2 sides started fighting each other. Everything only stopped until Roche and Bess arrived. Just then, Bess got so mad that she kicked Boki. Before Josie leaves, the people at the tail and Miles come to give her one last visit. Miles told her mom that he will be a life system engineer and would be one of the first groups to plant seeds of hope on Earth. The people at the tail held a parade to say farewell to Josie. When she left, Wilford and his group appeared. The two engineers at this time announced to the train that they will release a temperature balloon into the atmosphere. When it reached a certain height, Melanie would connect to it, and the signal sent out was also a sign that she was safe. Before meeting Wilford, Audrey told Zara that if she and Wilford don't come out of that room in 30 minutes, then come to rescue her. Under the dim, dazzling light, Audrey appeared with a sweet voice that captivated Wilford. Meeting the woman he had been pursuing for 7 years again made Wilford unable to take his eyes off of Audrey. It was as if he was hypnotized by Audrey. Wilford immersed in her without paying attention to anything else. Audrey and Wilford then go to the healing room, showing him the changes in the night carriage. Although it is still a place for entertainment and enjoyment, now it is also a place for healing. After finding out detailed information about Wilford employees, Layton started assigning tasks to his teammate to charm them. As one of the few Aussies left, Murray and the Australian seamstress, Emilia, start having friendly conversation with each other. While Bess is cheating with a curly-haired bartender, Alex meets with LJ again. The two started leaving the party and went somewhere private to stare at the sky. Meanwhile, Wilford was manipulated into returning to the past when he and Audrey shared a bathtub. He wanted her to cut herself as this brought satisfaction to Wilford. He knelt down and begged Audrey, saying that she is the only one that he wants. It's been 30 minutes and Audrey still hasn't come out. When Zara goes in, she sees the scene of the two having their moment together. Finally, the great moment for all humanity is coming. If anyone can survive outside this icy train, the only person who can survive is Melanie. Once again, the engineers opened their screen and announced to all the people on the train. Everyone was anxiously waiting for the signal from Melanie. Wilford couldn't bear it and exploded the balloon in front of his eyes. The hot air balloon has passed the mark but has not yet received any signal. After 5 minutes of silence, the signal was finally connected. The hope of all humanity has been rekindled once again. All the passengers feel a sense of relief while Wilford seems pissed off. Not only simply treating the diseases, Josie also takes advantage of every opportunity to observe every corner and information in Wilford laboratory. Looking at Icy Bob right next to her, Josie quickly guessed what Wilford's next plan would be. She stole the small tube and tried to write on a small roll of paper, then secretly put it in the laundry pile. Emilia went through the border department. The letter was entrusted to the little girl Winnie to transport to Layton. The content of the letter warned about the dangers of Icy Bob. On Big Alice, Wilford is having a conversation about a book with his staff. He also sent an invitation to Audrey for a talk. Audrey knew this would happen sooner or later, so she calmly accepted it. Her mission this time was to approach Wilford's room and then install an eavesdropping device so that Snowpiercer can know what Wilford's motives are. Sykes came to inform the Headwoods to ready themselves for Wilford's upcoming plan. The process of removing the skin tissue caused Josie to fall into a state of extreme pain. With Icy Bob advice, Josie tried to think of things that relate to the color red to ease the pain while performing surgery. From Josie's message, Layton gathered everyone around to warn about Wilford's upcoming actions. He requested a security to be locked tight on all car. Bess over here is extremely pissed because she hasn't able to find the suspects. If things continue like this, everything will get worse and worse. Meanwhile, in the third-class car, Pike, who is secretly selling marijuana, was attacked by LJ. She and Oz brought him in front of Terrence for some questioning. Terrence announced that without his permission, Pike could not be in the third-class car, otherwise that he would call people to beat Pike up. After hearing about the incident, Layton immediately tries to negotiate with Terrence. The money from the drug trade will be split 60-40, but Terrence threatened Layton about the little girl Winnie been delivering messages for. Layton told Zara about the situation regarding Terrence. To ensure Josie's safety, Zara proposed to Layton to get rid of Terrence. Right now, the engineer team could not receive Melanie's signal. Layton discusses with all the department heads. Everyone agreed not to let Wilford know about it. Instead, they will have to lie to everyone so that they can keep the hopes high. As tomorrow, according to the schedule, the train would return to pick Melanie up from the station. After setting foot on the Big Alice, Audrey was enthusiastically welcomed by Wilford. Taking advantage of the time he went to get wine, she tried her best to lockpick the train system control board but couldn't do it in time. Audrey pretended to look at the beautiful scene ahead to distract Wilford, but in the end, after she left, Wilford do notice something about the panel. The person assigned by Layton to assassinate Terrence this time is Pike. Only until now that we know Layton actually saves Pike from death due to the cannibalism incident long ago. From that moment on, Pike swore that he would not kill anyone except when fighting for the people at the back of the train. Now that vow will have to be broken because of the future of the train. He toddled into the small room where he made 2 sharp knives, and the security around Terrence actually went away when they see Pike. Pike played extremely fair this time, even giving him a little dignity to pick up a knife to fight. Terrence pretended to beg and plead, then splashed wine in his face, gaining momentum and stabbed Pike 1 time, but Pike quickly counterattacked, gaining the upper hand. After giving the janitor a few stabs in his stomach, he pressed him down and sprayed the glue machine into his mouth until the guy is dead. Because Josie's wound was so severe, the doctor wanted to perform surgery to remove the tissue, but she secretly hid her sleeping pill inside her sleeve. This action was seen by the icy Bob. During the surgery, she always tried to direct the pain outside by thinking of 5 red objects. Without the sleeping pill, she manages to eavesdrop from the headwoods that the breachmen are going to involve in Wilford's plan. Josie tried to lift her weak body up to send a message to Layton, but suddenly Icy Bob woke up and said that he knew Josie had secretly been hiding the medicine. But Icy Bob only asked for the 2 sleeping pills and nothing else. When the news reaches Layton's ear, he and Roche immediately went to find Boki. But who would have thought that when Layton found Boki, all of his crew were assassinated by a mysterious gang of people. Now there were only Boki left, everyone else was completely assassinated, all were mercilessly stabbed or strangled. The notification bell rang loudly, making it impossible for Audrey to dare cross the border. She chose to stay with Wilford in the end. Apparently old Wilford played a very good game of chess. He used the tactic of internal division between the trained tailies and the third-class people. Now all waves of suspicion will pour towards the people at the tail. Even if Layton wants to explain, Boki doesn't want to listen. Things are gradually getting worse than ever. Fortunately, Bess found that there was still a vintage Wilford badge left at the crime scene, which was eventually picked up next to the body of a victim. Bess tried to investigate LJ but could not get the kid to agree to cooperate. For old time's sake, Oz decided to take Bess to meet with the old lady who trades antiques. Knowing that Audrey decided not to return to the train, the crew made predictions whether or not Audrey had been compromised. It was possible that she stayed to continue completing the mission, or maybe she had a change of heart, as a horse cannot resist the habit of returning to its old path. The pressure from the people in the upper car was too great, so Murray's group decided to risk going up to bring tailies back to the tail car. Unfortunately, as soon as they stepped out the door, they encountered Boki. He angrily beat Murray up to avenge his comrade. The black dude trying to help as Murray got thrown 10 meters away. It wasn't until the brakeman team appeared that Boki was completely controlled. Oz took Bess to meet the old lady, the antique expert. As soon as Bess entered the room, they saw the old lady as having a blunt. An old woman sat on a chair shaking her left hand holding a cigarette and her right hand holding a breathing tube. Fortunately, this woman was also Wilford's acquaintance since he was a child, and is very close to him. As soon as she took a look at the classic double-veiled badge, she knew that this was the button of Wilford's jacket. After checking, she realized that it was the same, but this shirt had all the buttons. There are 2 on this train, one here and one exchanged with the tall black girl in first class last week. At the same time, Layton informed all the people on the train to calm them down and not be caught in Wilford's trap of division. This was just a trick to make the passengers fight each other to death. But now defending the tail at this time only gonna make things worse. The people of the third-class carriage all understand that the Layton is one of the tailies, so they all justify that to get their revenge. The wave of support for Wilford now increased. Everywhere there were the 3-finger sign. Not only in Snowpiercer but also Big Alice is also having conflicts between the lovebirds Wilford and Audrey. She wanted to know all the truth and what his plans were, but Wilford gave her the screwdriver he found. He knew this train better than anyone else. Wilford knew that Audrey wanted to change the connection wire to help the locomotive on the other side, eavesdropping on his conversation. Wilford didn't believe her, so he pulled her up and took her to meet a mysterious person. He wanted her to prove her sincerity, and wanted her to return to her old self. The person inside the room was moaning and screaming. That person was none other than Kevin. He was also saved by Wilford like Audrey. The third-class carriages met together to discuss a coup plan. They wanted to break the rules, arrest the people at the tail of the train and take away their arms. Layton had to go directly to protect his people. Pike now has a bald head and is not feeling right in the head. He blames Layton for causing him to be like this. He said that now Layton owed him a favor. Alex didn't understand why Wilford had changed, why he didn't inform her of any plans. Instead of taking over the Snowpiercer as promised, he liked to toy with Layton. She then points at Audrey, saying that Wilford would rather play with his whore than caring about anything. Wilford warned Alex to be careful with her tone. After 1 week of contact with Melanie, he felt that Alex had gone soft with her mother again, as evidenced by the fact that the girl even dared to show Melanie the train without telling Wilford. He reminded Alex that he had saved her from the bitter cold that Melanie cruelly left behind. The point is that Audrey is using all her abilities to brainwash Kevin. She manipulates him with the words that Wilford have saved him, and he should be grateful. Kevin still couldn't escape the image of being forced to cut his wrists, so he continuously told Audrey to stop. Audrey decided to turn off all electrical equipment so he could live in the dark and reflect on himself. Bess quickly informs Layton and Roche, so they find the suspicious first-class woman. They discovered the missing button on the jacket and the wound on the black woman's eye, so she couldn't refuse. While the train crew and the prosecution team were carrying out the trial in the third-class car, there was a riot. People were urgently looking for people at the tail to punish and avenge their breachman members. Pike thought that after shaving his head, no one would know, but as a result, he was dragged to the back of the train. From the investigation, Bess concludes that the pastor is behind everything. She observed everything in the tea room and discovered that the cup the pastor worshipped had a Wilford symbol on it. She started questioning the pastor. Hearing the news about Pike, Layton went down to rescue the guy. He begged the third class to take his hand instead of Pike to relieve their anger. Remembering the previous scene with the people at the tail of the train, Ruth convinces them to stop, as Layton was elected by them. On this side, Bess rushed to beat the pastor, like last time when Bess hit the old pastor in the face. But she wouldn't kill him but let him reveal all the truth, but suddenly another person strangled Bess from behind. The pastor hurriedly took the time to run into the penitentiary room before committing suicide. He struggled for a while to escape, but it was too late. The ice had frozen half of the pastor's head, causing him to die instantly. The path to exonerate the people behind the train is gradually being extinguished. A wave of calls for Wilford broke out. They lit lights throughout more than 1,000 train cars. This was the signal that supported his rule. He tells Sykes to inform the Headwoods to prepare for Icy Bob. Even though he gave very clear evidence of Wilford's plan, Boki still refused to believe it. He firmly believed that he had devoted 30 years to Wilford and could not believe that Wilford had done it. At this time, a technical problem occurred. The train suddenly broke and water flooded inside the train from the hallway to the room. Meanwhile, Big Alice received good news when Josie gradually became Wilford's second Icy Bob. He cared for her every little bit, giving her his scientific hand. After studying, a massage helped her believe that she still had 2 hands. After a thorough inspection of the locomotive, it was determined that the main cause of the flooding problem was due to a clogged snow intake. The transmission felt that things were not that simple. If this were a normal situation, the danger level would only be at level 3, but now there is only one breach left, Boki. But if he refuses to be repaired, the danger level is up to level 6. Especially if the hands of Wilford intervene, the danger level is up to alarm level 10. He ordered Icy Bob to climb onto the locomotive above to do his duty. When he returns in a completely frozen state, Wilford gives Icy Bob one of his Wilford coins in honor of his sacrifices. This is the ritual of being willing to sacrifice for the sake of the old Wilford mission, to save the train that is on the verge of exhaustion, to the point of Layton having to convince Boki to go outside to repair the train. Layton decided to put his ego away to beg Boki to save everyone. Anyway, Boki's heart was still devoted to his work responsibility. He agreed to take the risk for the safety of the train. Icy Bob wasn't able to survive the mission, and thus Josie was chosen to be the next Icy Bob. Josie encouraged him to try to live and enjoy life as a human being, not as a tool for Wilford. The Headwoods agreed and tell Josie about her potential. Maybe she can surpass the Icy Bob 10 times. Curious about what the Headwoods told her, she went to the icing chamber and stuck out her hand to test the theory. Strangely enough, what she felt was a feeling of pleasure, not pain from cracking skin due to low temperature. Realizing that Snowpiercer was slowing down, if it kept going like this it would definitely be late to pick up Melanie. Alex asked Ben about the problem with the locomotive, but he said that it was just a small problem as he doesn't want Wilford to know what is going on. The old man hinted happily as if he knew all the problems they were facing. Boki had now climbed out of the ship. A giant nail stuck straight into the snow suction slot. It was too far away, making it difficult for him to reach it. Boki tried his best to reach out and catch it. An object like this was definitely not an accident. Someone had gone down there before him. It seemed that Boki had understood everything. It was all a trick by Wilford. Boki gave the coin symbolizing his devoted loyalty to Wilford to Lantan. Now he would be willing to do his best for him. He hopes Layton one day insert this coin into Wilford's ass. The problem does not stop at the snow suction slot. The nail has penetrated deep into the locomotive's hardware, causing it to malfunction, not to mention it is on a Wilford device, although it is easy to repair and replace, but now they don't have any spare parts left. Alex tried to chain together the events and guessed it was all Wilford's plan. Audrey praised the girl for being very smart but always 2 steps behind. As expected, at that moment, Wilford receives a phone call from Ben. The condition to receive the device is to let Wilford board the locomotive. Even though Layton knows it's like releasing a tiger, if they don't do anything, Snowpiercer would shut down. According to the plan, they will have to hide Wilford to avoid people from the Wilford faction simultaneously rebelling. Layton will try to monitor him every second of every minute. Suppose if everything fails, the radio station will shoot a flare to notify everyone. The fact that Wilford set foot on the train was seen by an old train attendant and he announced it to all the workers, who all rushed to the locomotive to keep him there. After connecting the module, the locomotive caught some fire and seemed to malfunction. The main problem was because Melanie had installed override the circuit for manual navigation to help bypass the automatic system. The consequence of this will be that the locomotive will stop working as Wilford can't override the system, and the angry Wilford starts to fix it with the engineer. Wilford proposed a full manual restart of the train even though the risk of it not being able to operate again is very high. Looking at everyone following Wilford orders, Layton felt helpless. It seemed like only the engineer knew how to fix the train. Wilford mocked Layton that he is unfit to rule as he did not know how to fix the train. He contacted the train to broadcast the entire operation for the people on the ship to hear. It turned out that everything was planned from the beginning by Wilford, from internal disruption to killing the breach man, including Icy Bob causing a malfunction on Snowpiercer, rendering the transmission powerless. Under the cheers of the entire people, Layton could do nothing but surrender and hand over the train to Wilford. He sat down and slowly fired flares to inform everyone about the downfall of the revolutionary. His punishment was to work in the compost car while Roche and his family were forced to go to the drawer. Wilford meanwhile sat on Snowpiercer, tasting the victory he had planned for 7 years. That very day, Wilford wanted to restore the order he had previously built, and requested to withdraw and reorganize all information about the remaining passengers on the train. Although Ben and Javi were separated by 1 locomotive each, they still had an important mission: to return to pick up Melanie. Having just met Melanie's daughter who asked him not to do anything without her orders, Javi tried to be friendly but failed. Alex left him to drive Big Alice alone while she went to the upper car to attend the grand party that Wilford has organized. Layton's job was even harder than when he was at the tail of the train. He got the protein bar while Wilford organized an entire amusement park to celebrate his victory. In the end, Alex and Melanie are only an instrument for Wilford to manipulate. Melanie turns on to catch the train through the top of the snowy mountain, but Wilford speeds up the train, the 2 mother and daughter failing to reunite. Wilford saw the climate report that Ben had been hiding. He easily discovered that the locomotive had lost contact with Melanie 10 days ago. After hearing the news, Alex was completely shocked. Bess declared that even if he imprisoned Layton, the resistance on this train would never end. Wilford went directly to the composting car to insult Layton, and how he has failed as a leader. Layton is still very calm. His voice was firm and full of righteousness, but when Wilford mentioned Zara and his child, he immediately picked up the shovel and threw it straight at the Wilford, feeling helpless. Gradually Layton turned into anger, reaching its peak. At a small dinner party with the participation of a few people who were considered lucky, Audrey and Wilford appeared very flirtatiously, singing and dancing leisurely. Ruth wanted to clear the empty seats, but Wilford wanted to let his last guest not only worry about eating and dancing as Wilford understood everything, including the secrets of the people here, of course part of. It was due to Audrey babbling. On the side of the train, Layton met with Josie and the two had a conversation. She received news that the resistance army still harbored hope of an uprising, so Josie went to see Layton. He told her to keep the hopes and an opportunity to strike back. However, Layton knows that now is not the right time for him to wait and Josie will have to take the position that Wilford gave her as Icy Bob's successor. Returning to the banquet table, the last chair was reserved for Ruth. Alex reminded her not to believe Wilford's words. He didn't want the whole ship to return to save Melanie, who was risking her life to find life for everyone. Wilford pounded the table as he didn't want to go through that dangerous trial route anymore. In that case, Alex immediately turned over the cards. The girl told the truth that initially there were 200 people on Big Alice, but he killed half because they were wasting resources. Before getting ready to go to prison, Alex reminded her one last time to be herself and not be manipulated. Wilford called Kevin in to raise the issue of the position of head of the hospitality department. He proposed to give this position to Ruth, which made her very surprised. However, the condition in exchange for withdrawal was to announce in front of everyone that she agrees to not return to pick up Melanie. But Ruth refuses, making Wilford disappointed. He asked her to take off her uniform and put her in the same room with Leighton. Finally, Bess was offered by Wilford to become his personal advisor and then took her to another car with the Breachman murderer. In front of her eyes were the people who murdered the Breachman under Wilford orders. She didn't want to judge them in this way, so she advised him to not kill them. Even though she warned him as much as he could, in the end he still gave the order to kill all of them. He immediately pulled the lever to deal with all the criminals. They screamed in pain in front of him, but she just turned away helplessly and didn't dare look at them. Wilford's room was full of naked degenerates everywhere, and we also see Javi as driving Big Alice. He heard the communication signal that Melanie is still alive, but just when Wilford returned he couldn't do anything, so he secretly turned it off. Javi quickly asked to go to the bathroom to write down a warning message and put it on a lipstick and flush it down the toilet. While sad, Ruth noticed it in the pile of trash. When she opened it, he found out that it was a letter from Javi, with content that Melanie is alive. Leighton thinks this is the right time to withdraw and get out of this dirty, stinking place. With Leighton and Ruth still being looked up, they figure that a trap is needed to escape. With Ruth no longer afraid to do terrible things, she decided to go along with Leighton's plan. To prevent the guard from detecting anything unusual, they continued to work and waited for him to call and hand over the food tray, then pulled out and pretended to ask for more, making him reach inside. Leighton took the opportunity to grab his hand and repeatedly hit his head against the door, causing him to lose consciousness, followed by several more stabs to the heart. Ruth picked up the shovel and slashed it straight at the guy's head. They moved to the engine, then find Alex being looked up. Ruth told her about Melanie's situation, but Alex asked if there was another way to Wilford engines. She guided them the way to Wilford bedroom. To turn onto the test track requires the combination of both locomotives. They will have to convince Javi and notify Ben. Ruth observed that there were Javi and 2 guards inside. Leighton found several swords in Wilford's bedroom. They planned to each take down each guy quickly and unexpectedly. He counted 1-2, but Ruth already charged in, and Leighton flew in to kill the remaining guy. The next difficult thing they need to do is inform Ben about slowing down the track to save Melanie. Javi has worked with Ben for 8 years, so he believes Ben will understand what he says. On the other side of the machine, there was always a security guard and Sykes. Javi used coordinate symbols to remind Ben of the turning point of the mountain. It was true that he understood what Javi was saying. Next, Javi asks his friend at the border to transfer them to the ship on the other side. Leighton Army is already waiting to welcome the 2 of them. Everyone is mentally prepared for the coup. Audrey is still trying to convince Zara to obediently obey Wilford, or else he will eliminate her immediately. While talking, there was a bell ringing outside. Bess tells Zara about the plan. To capture the locomotive and return to pick up Melanie, they needed to take Audrey as a hostage. About to get to the breaking point, Ben began to slow down. He pretended to stand up to check something, then push the security guy out of the engine. Now it's just him and Sykes left. However, she's not the kind of girl he thought she was. Ben waved his arms unsteadily while she gently dodged and delivered fatal blows to his face. While she pressed his head against the table, Ben took advantage of the opportunity to enter the track change key. The inertial change caused the locomotive to shake violently. Ben took the opportunity to knock out Sykes and then informed Javi and Leighton that will arrive at the pickup point in 10 minutes. However, the extremely bumpy test track on Rocky Mountain that causes Wilford's suspicious Alex diversionary trick in the end has been exposed by LJ. He ordered her to be taken with him and they all moved to Big Alice. Alex passed by and took a razor and swallowed it in her mouth. The warning went off while the road ahead was still long. Ben encouraged Javi that he was a talented engineer and needed to stay calm and buy time until then. Knocking on the door was ineffective, so Wilford decided to cut the weld on the door. On this side, Javi was sitting anxiously waiting when luckily Leighton observed Melanie running over. At that moment, the soldiers broke down the door of the locomotive and rushed in to brutally beat Javi. He was confident that Wilford would not kill him because he needed an engineer. Wilford was a person who likes challenges, so he let Jupiter out to punish Javi. Wilford then pushed the engine to the highest speed while Melanie was running at full speed to catch up with the train. Ben knew that Snowpiercer cannot push against Big Alice because it has momentum. Alex could only say goodbye to her beloved mother through the glass window. She tried to convince Wilford to back off the train to pick up Melanie because she had the scientific data to take everyone to a place where they could live. He blatantly dismissed her as just a tool he picked up along the way to chase Melanie out. Now that Alex had completed her task, she no longer had any value left to him. She slandered him that he would never be able to lead like her beloved mother. Wilford slapped Alex directly in the face, causing her to angrily cut his neck with the hidden knife. Luckily, the wound wasn't too deep, so the Hedwoods family was still able to handle it. Taking advantage of that moment, Alex ran to the side of Layton and announced that there was another way to save Melanie, which was to steal and detach the locomotive with Big Alice. Big Alice had enough fuel to take care of the entire life system while they were going, so it would be extremely difficult for Wilford to catch up because the train was both long and heavy. They found there is a car designed to be separated when there is an incident, which is the aquarium, which is a weak point for them to cling to during the blockade. After Wilford woke up, he assigned the task of Josie to go outside and to kill Ben. However, she went against Wilford's orders. They prepared a harpoon for her with the promise that when she returned, she would receive treatment to restore her physical strength. At this time, the signal at the locomotive informed that someone had exited the train from the decooling chamber. Sykes knew that it was Josie. Ben knew that person was none other than Josie and immediately contacted her to ask for help with an important matter. Josie quickly ran to the place where help was needed. Inside the train, Layton was trying to hold back Wilford for as long as possible so Boki could disconnect the J-hook. When it was almost finished, Wilford's security troops appeared. No matter how big and strong Boki was, he couldn't defeat 5 or 6 security forces. In the moment of danger, Josie appeared and broke the glass, causing ice to rush in and destroy the aquarium car. They successfully split the train into 2, the speed of the locomotive quickly putting distance between them. Layton and Alex set off to the research room but couldn't find Melanie anywhere, leaving only the database that she warmed inside the suitcase. She left a letter to Alex. She knew they would come here, but she couldn't last until then. All resources were completely exhausted. There was nothing left to eat and no warmth left. When she saw the train passing by was speeding up, she knew that Wilford was using sabotage tactics. Her happiness is to see Alex one last time by the window. She hopes that in the future everyone out there will have warmth both mentally and physically. After activating Melanie data, Ben discovered some places with negative pressure air. Their next task is to take back the lost train.